Welcome to Fearless Public Speaking. I'm Dr. Norma Jones, and this is Chapter 2, Rhetorical Theory and Persuasive Speaking Foundations. Learning Objectives. By the end of this chapter, you will be able to explain Aristotle's rhetorical appeals, ethos, pathos, logos, and apply them in public speaking. Identify the elements of the rhetorical situation. Distinguish between types of persuasive propositions. Apply audience-centered persuasion strategies. Analyze common persuasive structures. Differentiate ethical persuasion from manipulative persuasion. Prepare for the persuasive speech assignment. Introduction. Persuasion is a central feature of human communication. It can be defined as the process of influencing attitudes, beliefs, or behaviors through communication. Whether you are convincing a friend to see a movie, motivating coworkers to support a new project, or engaging in civic debates about public policy, you are practicing persuasion. In this class, persuasion is not just about winning arguments. It is about ethical influence and helping audiences make informed decisions while respecting their freedom to choose. Public speaking becomes powerful when persuasion is audience-centered, ethical, and grounded in strong reasoning. Persuasive speech assignment preview. In this course, you will deliver a 6-minute persuasive speech with the following requirements. Must include verbal citations of 3 credible and appropriate resources. Must be audience-centered and ethically persuasive. Should use 1 or more persuasive structures. Include a preparation outline submitted with at least 3 credible sources, cited both orally and in writing. Follow a clear structure that includes an introduction with an attention getter, a thesis preview, well-developed main points with transitions, and a strong conclusion. Demonstrate delivery skills, extemporaneous style, eye contact, clear vocal variety, appropriate gestures, and professional appearance. Must be explicitly persuasive. This assignment challenges you to balance ethos, pathos, and logos while respecting the rhetorical situation. It also prepares you for civic, professional, and academic settings where persuasion is essential. As we begin our persuasive speeches, we will integrate the upcoming parts of this chapter into a cohesive whole. We will begin by choosing a topic, considering the types of persuasive propositions. Then we will select a persuasive structure that fits best. We will build arguments using Aristotle's appeals and adapt your delivery to the rhetorical situation and audience-centered strategies, ensuring your speech connects effectively. Finally, we will address how to avoid manipulative persuasion. Tying these steps together gives us a clear path from topic selection to ethical, effective delivery. Types of persuasive propositions. Persuasive speeches focus on 3 main kinds of proposition. Each type requires evidence and reasoning, but the appeals and structures differ. A proposition of fact asserts something is true or false. These propositions emphasize data and evidence. For example, a proposition of fact is, cigarette smoking causes serious health problems. A proposition of value argues whether something is right or wrong, good or bad. This type of proposition depends on shared beliefs. For instance, it is morally wrong for cigarette companies to market to teenagers. A proposition of policy advocates for action or change. It also pushes for that action in terms of policy, regulations, and rules. As an example, the government should ban cigarette advertising aimed at youth. These 3 types of propositions are related and overlapping because they often appear together in persuasive communication. A speech may present a fact about cigarette harms, argue it is wrong for companies to market them to youth as a value, and call for policy change to restrict advertising as a policy. In this way, fact, value, and policy reinforce one another. Sometimes we may confuse persuasive with informative speaking because fact-based topics can look like they are simply providing information. For example, a speech about why LeBron James is the best NBA player seems informative and is based on stats and other facts. However, because it asserts something is true, it is persuasive. Now that we have addressed picking a topic based on the types of propositions, let us use the example of why AI must be taught in colleges as a through line. This topic can be shaped as a fact, value, or policy proposition. For example, as a fact, you could argue that AI is already transforming the workplace, and colleges must prepare students. As a value, you could argue that it is responsible and ethical for colleges to teach AI, ensuring students are not left behind, especially as countries like China integrate AI into their primary and secondary education. As a policy, you could propose that all colleges require at least one AI literacy course. This will serve as a running example for how to build a persuasive speech. Common persuasive structures. Organizing ideas is crucial in persuasion. Common organizational structures include problem solution benefits, identifies a problem and offers a clear solution, highlighting the benefits of the proposed action. For example, a speech about rising tuition presents debt as a problem, free community college as a solution, and the benefit of reduced financial stress for students. Problem cause solution expands the problem solution pattern by adding an analysis of underlying causes. For example, a speech about campus stress identifies high tuition and heavy course loads as causes, and then suggests lowering costs and improving counseling services as solutions. Comparative advantage demonstrates why one option is superior to others. For example, advocating for lowering college tuition by comparing the long-term financial relief, improved access, and reduced debt burden against the current high-cost system. Monroe's motivated sequence, a 5-step model designed to inspire action. 1. Attention. Capture interest. This means opening with a story, statistic, or question that makes the audience want to listen. For example, begin with a surprising statistic about how student debt has tripled in the last 2 decades. 2. Need. Describe the problem. This step explains why the issue matters and why the audience should care. For example, show how high tuition creates barriers for many students and leads to long-term debt. 3. Satisfaction. Offer a solution. Present your plan or proposal to solve the problem. For example, propose lowering tuition or expanding financial aid programs. 4. Visualization. Help the audience imagine results. Paint a clear picture of the positive future if your solution is adopted. For example, imagine a college where more students graduate debt-free and can focus on careers instead of loan payments. 5. Action. Call for concrete steps. Give the audience a specific, achievable action to take. For example, encourage them to support petitions or contact legislators to advocate for affordable tuition. As you practice these structures, remember that every persuasive claim can face pushback. For example, while lowering tuition seems like a clear benefit, some critics argue that making education too inexpensive may cause students to undervalue it. They might suggest that if tuition is too low, classmates could perceive learning as a chore and be less motivated to learn valuable skills that will benefit their future success. Playing devil's advocate helps you anticipate counter-arguments and strengthen your own case. As our through-line example, imagine applying these structures to a topic like why AI must be taught in colleges. For instance, in a problem-solution benefits pattern, you might present the problem of some graduates being unprepared for modern careers, propose adding AI coursework as the solution, and emphasize the benefits of career readiness and innovation skills. Using comparative advantage, you could argue that colleges offering AI courses give students greater opportunities than those that do not. In Monroe's motivated sequence, you could highlight the growing demand for AI literacy as the attention and need steps, propose curriculum changes for satisfaction, describe the future of graduates with AI skills as visualization, and encourage support for integrating AI into courses as the action. Aristotle's rhetorical appeals. Rhetoric, often defined as the art of effective or persuasive communication, provides a framework for understanding how speakers influence audiences. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle described persuasion through 3 appeals that remain the foundation of rhetorical theory today. Ethos, credibility, the character, trustworthiness, and expertise of the speaker. A speaker builds ethos by demonstrating honesty, goodwill, and knowledge. For example, a doctor speaking about public health gains ethos from professional experience. By contrast, an online influencer promoting a health product without medical training or evidence demonstrates weak or even harmful ethos. Pathos, emotion, appealing to the audience's emotions to create a connection. Pathos can inspire empathy, fear, hope, or pride. A nonprofit speaker may use stories of real people affected by poverty to create urgency for donations. However, an advertiser who exaggerates dangers or uses fear tactics without evidence shows a negative example of pathos. Logos, logic, the reasoning and evidence that support arguments. Logos includes statistics, expert testimony, and logical structures. For instance, an advocate might cite peer-reviewed data from reliable studies. A negative example of logos is when a speaker cherry-picks misleading statistics or uses data out of context to support a weak claim. An effective speech often intertwines ethos, pathos, and logos. For example, a civil rights leader may establish ethos through lived experience and moral credibility, use pathos by sharing moving stories of injustice, and apply logos by presenting statistics on inequality. Using our example, a student advocating for why AI must be taught in colleges can build ethos by citing college professors and respected industry leaders. Use pathos by sharing news reports of recent graduates not being able to find jobs because they lack AI skills, and apply logos by presenting statistics about the growing number of careers requiring AI literacy. The rhetorical situation. The rhetorical situation highlights the context in which persuasion. Speaker, the person delivering the message, bringing credibility, style, and perspective. Audience, the people who listen and interpret the message. Audiences are diverse in beliefs, values, and experiences. Message, the ideas and arguments being communicated. Context, the circumstances surrounding the communication, including time, place, culture, and historical moment. For example, the rhetorical situation can be illustrated through its parts. A student speaker delivers a message or talk about reducing textbook costs to their audience of classmates during a context of campus budget forum. Understanding the rhetorical situation helps speakers adapt their approach because each audience has unique knowledge, needs, and expectations. For example, speaking about affordable housing to high school students in California requires a different framing than addressing policymakers in Washington, D.C. This matters because recognizing why audiences differ in perspective allows speakers to craft messages that connect more effectively. For example, consider the topic of why AI must be taught in colleges. The speaker could be a computer student advocating for curriculum change. The audience might be classmates and faculty at a campus forum. The message could stress that AI literacy is necessary for student career readiness. The context could be a time when employers are increasingly demanding AI skills in job postings. This AI example shows how the rhetorical situation shapes persuasive communication. Audience-centered persuasion strategies. Successful persuasion requires knowing your audience. Persuasion involves identification or finding common ground with our listeners. Strategies include analyzing audience demographics and values. This involves analyzing factors like age, gender, cultural background, education, and interest to understand the audience's concerns and potential responses. For example, you can research data to find out that your audience is mostly first-year college students, which allows you to connect your topic to adjusting to college life. Using inclusive language. This means choosing words that respect and include all members of the audience, avoiding terms that stereotype or exclude groups. For instance, we can say we and our community instead of excluding phrases like you people. Acknowledging counter arguments. This means recognizing and addressing opposing viewpoints to show fairness and credibility. For example, in a speech on banning smoking on campus, fairly noting concerns about individual freedom before presenting your argument. Highlighting shared goals or concerns. This means pointing to common interests that unite the audience and speaker. For instance, it would be useful to emphasize that both students and faculty want a healthier, safer campus environment. For instance, when persuading classmates to be aware of mental health issues, you might connect to shared concerns about stress, anxiety, and access to counseling services. For example, if your topic is why AI must be taught in colleges, you can adapt audience-centered strategies in specific ways. You can analyze demographics by noting that many classmates worry about future job prospects. You can use inclusive language by saying our classmates to build solidarity. You can acknowledge counter-arguments by admitting that some may fear AI will replace jobs, then explain how education can prepare students to adapt. Finally, you can highlight shared goals by showing that both students and faculty want graduates to be prepared for an AI-driven workforce. This demonstrates your understanding of the audience's concerns and values, effectively connecting your message to their future success. Avoiding manipulative persuasion. Ethical persuasion avoids deception, coercion, and exploitation of emotions. Manipulation may involve exaggerating statistics, withholding evidence, or using fear without reason. It can also include twisting expert testimony to appear more credible than it is, presenting only one-sided information while ignoring important context, or relying on loaded emotional language that pressures the audience rather than informs them. These practices distort the truth and limit the audience's ability to make informed, autonomous choices. Some ways to ensure ethical persuasion are: provides accurate information. This means offering data and evidence that are factually correct and up to date. For example, quoting the latest enrollment statistics from a reliable university source. Respects audience autonomy. This means allowing listeners to make their own decisions without pressure. For example, encouraging students to consider healthier habits while acknowledging that the choice is ultimately theirs. Cites credible and appropriate sources. This means using trustworthy, verifiable references. For example, referring to a peer-reviewed journal article instead of a random social media post. This is important because random internet articles from popular and inappropriate sources cannot be used for speeches. Think about it this way. Do you want your medical doctor giving your health advice based on a TikTok video or a thoroughly vetted CDC health report? Acknowledges opposing viewpoints fairly and does not misrepresent them. This means presenting counter-arguments honestly. Example, in a speech on banning smoking on campus, recognizing personal freedom concerns before giving reasons for the ban. Seeks to empower rather than pressure the audience. This means inspiring confidence and agency in listeners. For example, urging classmates to get involved in student government to create positive change rather than shaming them for not participating. For example, a student giving a persuasive speech on lowering tuition should present both the benefits and the challenges, using credible research rather than exaggeration. By practicing honesty and transparency, speakers build trust and long-term credibility, which strengthens both their message and their reputation. For example, if your persuasive topic is why AI must be taught in colleges, ethical persuasion means acknowledging that some worry AI will reduce human jobs, while also presenting credible research on how AI literacy prepares students to use technology responsibly and create new opportunities. By citing workforce studies addressing environmental applications such as AI improving renewable energy, and inviting the audience to consider both sides, the speaker empowers listeners to make their own informed decision. Summary. As you prepare your own persuasive speech, think of this process as weaving all the chapter's parts together into one strong whole. Begin by choosing a topic considering the types of persuasive propositions. Then select a persuasive structure that fits best. Build your arguments with Aristotle's appeals: ethos for credibility, pathos for emotion, and logos for logic. Adapt your delivery using the rhetorical situation and audience-centered strategies. So your speech connects. Finally, make sure your work reflects the principles in avoiding manipulative persuasion. Tying these steps together gives you a clear path from topic selection to ethical, effective delivery. I am Dr. Norma Jones. Thank you so much for listening to this chapter of Fearless Public Speaking.